recorded.
And I'm using Fathom Note Taker. So I don't like having there's just too many of them. And if I sit here and try, it's not letting me reject them for some reason. So probably I have to do that in the beginning. Greg Gutman, hey man, I haven't seen your face in so long. How are you?
Hi, Sarah. Great. How are you?
Oh, it's so funny that you're here. All right, well, let's kick this off with and Taylor. Last time you were you snuck in a call and now you're recruited into the group. Do you see how that happens?
Like
I
magic.
love the power thing. I know it is magic. All right, well, let's get started. We all had more FOMO. It seems like Friday is like the FOMO calls where we can recap all the conferences we didn't get to go to. So, okay, which one of my four do you want me to call on first to go? It's gonna be Jeff. Okay, all right, so let me first introduce. So one of the cool things, and we're gonna do this for TAA because that's next week. We're gonna do this for AIM. I think somebody mentioned doing it for BamaCon because that's next week.
Don't forget Bama.
Yeah, I will not because you're gonna be at that one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so again, we're going to try to keep the tradition where we do these recap calls for conferences just to give each other some insight on what did we miss, how to prepare, what were the takeaways. So we're doing that for RETCON. So we'll start with, so first of all, we have 4 people that were graciously agreed to do this. So Jeff Hawk, Tammy Longo, Zeke Lucas, and Ariel Guzman. So Jeff is the CRO at eProperty Care. Jeff, if you would like to kick it off with your highlights and takeaways, and then you can tag in one of the other 3 when you have a moment. And again, before we get started, you guys, can you shut off your autopilots? And it's dawned on me that maybe they are not here and their autopilot is. So, all right, Jeff, why don't you kick it off and take it away for us?
Okay, sure. So good to see everyone. Thanks for the time. So I had the opportunity to go into RETCON this year and also the year before, so I have a little compare and contrast on that. I would say this year I liked it better. First of all, the location was better. In 23, it was in Brooklyn. It was much harder to travel to. From a transit perspective, having it in Manhattan was better. And I think it also drew the numbers to be larger. I think somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 people. Like most conferences, the first full day is always more attendance than the second. One of the things that's unique about RETCON is that they actually have formal tracks. So like if you have experience with CRE Tech, which I think Ariel does, we met there. That's kind of a generic conference about real estate and real estate technology. With RETCON, there's a multifamily track, there's like an office track, and there's some other generic track. So you could kind of pick and choose what you're most interested in and then attend seminars and panels for that. There's a trade show floor that's there. I would say it was larger than last year, which kind of shows some goodness that there's more tech, but also probably more startup companies allowed there. If you look at like some of the big box conferences like the Optex and NAA, it's kind of reserved for the upper tiers of the market. I think RETCON does a good job to incorporate companies of varying size. With respect to the panels, there was a lot of talk about AI, which is not a surprise because we hear about that on the daily. And then also sustainability, ESG, and very good moderation on the panels. So the question and answer that you saw there was pretty good. One of my impressions on the panels related to ESG related to the size of the companies that were on the panel. So they had people there from RXR and a logistics company, Prologis, right? These are massive ownership groups, massive operators. And the impression that I had with particularly ESG, is that at the upper end of the market, these organizations are creating organizations specifically focused for sustainability. They have very strict data governance around it, meaning if you want to start measuring like how well your efforts are going, you need to save, capture, analyze, and review a lot of your data. So at the end of the panel that I listened to, I actually went over to, one of the panelists and I said, gee, like I see this really working well at the top, but what do you think about the middle? And she's like, it's nowhere to be found. Basically, like the entire mid market, as much as we all want to move towards that, there's a huge gap there because the organizations aren't equipped with like separate groups for it and separate organizations to do it. So I think like for whether you're at an operator or a vendor to the industry, you could definitely take from that as much as there's a chase to the top, the entire mid market is in my opinion is wide open for opportunity. I think the last thing I'll say, and then I'll call on someone else. Redcon does a good job of giving you enough time to go to panels and then meet people individually. This year they set up like a whole area, like a whole floor in the hotel for like these stand-up tables where you could schedule meetings in advance through an app and have pretty good conversations with people. So took advantage of that and it was really good. I think overall, like the vibe of the entire conference is very positive, and I know I got a lot out of being there. I think just a lot of energy around like the role of technology in real estate, and this conference leans very heavy towards like tech and tech vendors. It's not really like so heavy on like the operator like leasing side per se. It's more on like the role of tech in these organizations. So it's extremely well done. Is my
It,
overall.
Jeff, I have a question. So with you being at eProperty Care, a tech company,
Yeah.
the smart solutions, is there anything that you hoped to see or get from that conference that you didn't, or like that's on your wish list for next year?
I don't really
Or
think.
was it pretty?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I mean, my wish list would be that there's like a track maybe specific to smart property tech, which they did not have. I think it's becoming big enough that it could stand on its own. I mean, I do also have some access to the guy that ran the conference and gave him feedback that I thought it was well done. I think they're open-minded on doing more and extending some of the tracks, but they do a good job in the sense that the moderators go into the panels with like really thoughtful questions about what they want to get done there, and just very high caliber panelists also. So they do an exceptional job of like curating who they're picking. Maybe some of them are pay to play. I don't know all the ins and outs of how you actually land there, whether you're just picked for your stature or you pay to play there, but they're well done on how they're curated and just like the timing of how they move the day along. They also display on like large boards like every track. So like you walk in the morning, I took a picture of it and I could tell like what I wanted to do through my day. So and very good app experience that they have. So like again, like the entire event was on an app and I could see like who I was meeting with, what time, what conflicts I might have had. Thought that was great. Um,
That's
I'll,
awesome.
I'll call on Ariel, who I've seen at multiple New York conferences.
Yeah, right. It's so nice having a conference so near our home, right, Jeff?
Absolutely, I love it. Get on the train.
That's right. That's why RETCON is actually one of my favorite conferences. I'm a little biased there, but yeah, I retweet to everything that Jeff just said. I definitely really loved the app experience. I think the RETCON app is probably by far the most intuitive like networking app I've experienced in a conference. Um, I wish we got access a little earlier. I think that we got access to the app I think a week or a week and a half before, which from a supplier partner standpoint, I would have loved to plan a little more strategically and set up those meetings. So this year, as a supplier partner, I did have a booth there as well. Last year, I just was an attendee. And I actually saw a lot of value, I guess, in both perspectives. So the one thing, and I agree with Jeff, this year was definitely better. It was bigger. It was a lot more attendees, a lot more going on. The one thing I actually really enjoyed about last year's conference at RETCON was the multifamily track was extremely separated in a good way, because like I was focused in like one area and one like salon where I was able to see like all the people that I wanted to meet with and interact with. This year felt definitely more like mix and match with a lot of like the commercial side of the business and office and retail. That was my only like one thing I missed from last year. It was a little more intimate that in that sense, but I think overall it was bigger, better. To Jeff's point, a better location. So that was awesome to see. From the I was actually at the booth, so I actually enjoyed my experience just a little more from an educational standpoint last year, because last year I was just a pure attendee and I was able to attend a lot of the sessions. So since I had a booth this year, I was at the booth from like 12 to 5 pretty much both days. But I was able to attend some of the sessions in the morning, which was nice, and I was able to see Grady's session. I was sitting right in front with Grady. By the way, I still owe you those photos. I'll get them over to you. Sorry. Yeah, there was a lot of great sessions. They get really, key players at this conference. So it was nice to see that story kind of repeated itself this year. What's also nice, and I don't think I've seen this just yet, was they send a video recap to all the attendees of all the sessions if you weren't able to attend, via like a private YouTube link or whatever. So I didn't get that just yet. Usually we get it like a month or two after the conference. So I'm looking forward to getting that video, because I missed a lot of sessions this year, unfortunately. But yeah, that's kind of just a main gist. But yeah, retweets everything Jeff said as well. Oh, and the other thing too, there was a lot of great post events that were happening. Didn't get to attend because I went to, as most of you know, went to Ireland right after RETCON. I literally went on a flight like a few hours right after RETCON ended. But there was a lot of awesome like different networking events that other suppliers were hosting, and that I wasn't able to partake in, but I heard really great things, and that it seemed like really busy. There was like 5 different things you could do on day 1 and day 2 of the conference after the fact in the city, which was pretty neat.
Do you have a session that you went to that you really loved?
I loved Marcy at RKW. She just a powerhouse. She had a great session. That room was pretty packed. I don't know if anyone else attended that one. But she was very open about some of the things that they were doing as an operator and implementing new tech and how they go about it. And it was really eye-opening, and I think that had a lot of engagement as well. And to the app's point, I mean, there were people like messaging me through the app that I was able to connect with, people like that recognized me from LinkedIn, which I thought was really cool. Solely through the app, and setting up meetings was super easy. And from a networking perspective, I think it's by far one of the best conferences I've attended. And Tara, I think last year is actually when I met some of the people from this group at RETCON last year,
Yeah.
and of course I saw others this year as well that were part of this group. So really cool to see everyone in person.
Yeah, I need more. You sent me the one of you and Debbie Ray and Charlene. I need more. Who has more mentor group pictures at this conference? Because Grady keeps bugging me for pictures for the website, right, Grady? Since he's building the website. No, that's one of the things I'm trying to put on our new LinkedIn page, is moments like that. I absolutely love when you start meeting these people and you haven't met before, and it's these conferences that bring us together. So that is super cool. Love that. All right, who are you gonna pick on?
Also, I have Tammy right next to me, so yeah.
Well, happy to talk about it. It was great to actually, see Ariel there too. We literally ran into each other in one of the happy hours. And I echo everything that they said, of course. The app, I really do wish that I understood how powerful it was before I got there. I would have been able to use it a lot better as well. But it was a very powerful app. And as far as the vibe of the conference, I don't think I've ever been to a conference with more optimism, with more openness. Everyone that you met there was ready with business cards, ready to talk, ready to network. there was no awkwardness. There was no looking down. Like people were there for it. Like they understood this was a networking conference. There was a lot of really great sessions. I liked that they had different time frames for sessions. There were 10-minute, 20-minute, 45-minute sessions. So you really got a chance to attend a lot of different things in whatever topics that you wanted. And a couple of those topics we've already talked about, but a couple ones that stood out to me were the resident flow, right? We think about our tech flow on site. We think about what we go through on site, but we're really not thinking about it from a resident's perspective. And that was one thing that I heard over and over again is we really need to put ourselves in their shoes when going through this tech stack because it's become so overwhelming on site because, basically COVID pushed us into a lot of this technology. Are we thinking about it from the resident standpoint? And is it cumbersome for them if it's cumbersome for us? So that was kind of hit on the head a couple of the sessions that I went to. The data analytics was another one that Jeff kind of touched on. And that middle ground, absolutely, it's hard to turn data into action. We heard that over and over again, too. We have all this data. It's being provided. We've got the sources for it. But turning that data into action is problematic. And the bigger companies do have data analysts, but the mid-market, they don't have the means to actually hire data analysts to turn these things into actionable items for our site teams. The ESG was absolutely at the top of the list as well. There was a lot of talk about the sustainability and how we're incorporating that into our branding and pushing that out to the masses because people are looking to see that. One of the sessions and one of the things that I heard that stuck with me too was obviously we know multifamily is kind of a slow adapter, slow sales cycle. And people now are really looking at the CEO of your company, right? They're deep diving into who the supplier is. They're looking to see if your company's values align with their values when picking suppliers, because that's just going to eliminate or make it easier for them to connect with you on an emotional level. And that's not something that I had thought of from the high level of quality person that was there speaking about this. So that was very interesting to me that they're really looking for a connection when picking suppliers. It's not a lot, dollars and cents matter, but do your company values align with my company values? So I thought that was very interesting. And then as far as I didn't really catch, too many other themes. There was a lot of events, like Ariel said, and every single one of them was very high level. People, again, very open to talk. Those meeting sessions, the whole floor of meeting tables, those stand-up meeting tables was hopping the whole time. And you could really just walk around, talk to anybody you wanted to, or schedule one of those 15-minute meetings with anyone. The trade show floor was a little bit packed, a little bit busy, but it was awesome that everyone, again, willing to talk. I did see a lot of fraud suppliers there. A lot of that was not so much in session, but a lot of people on the trade show floor were fraud protection people. So that, I'm sure, obviously that's on everyone's minds, but I think that will be something that moves its way into sessions in the future. And, I just really thought it was awesome. It was a really great conference, really well done. There was a lot of things that they put on too. Like you could choose to do a tour of Pen 1. They put that on. They had women-specific happy hours for women in business. They just did a lot of really interesting things. And it wasn't just that, only women could go to this, but you knew the majority of them would be there. So if you wanted to come into that room and speak to business women in, whatever multifamily or construction that you wanted, they were there for you. So that was really cool too. And again, being right in the heart of Times Square, doesn't get much better as a location than that. We had terrible weather. It rained 98.9% of the time, but that doesn't really matter when you've got everything at your fingertips there. So all of those events that were there, they were pretty close. So we could walk out the back door to some of them. And it was really, really nice. And suppliers were not ticky-tacky about other suppliers coming to their events. It was an overall really there was a camaraderie to this conference that I just haven't seen a ton in other places. So that's my recap.
I think you're right though on the fraud suppliers. I think someone said there's actually 6 of them, which probably doesn't make Ariel too happy. But kind of a temperature of how things are going in the industry. I think the other thing I wanted to say is when there's discussion about AI, I was listening to one of the panels and they're like, yeah, there's a big race to try to automate the heck out of everything, but there's a risk in doing so also. And this is still an industry where people want to deal with a person when it comes to picking a place to live and kind of where do you set the line on how far in do you lean to automation and what pieces do you not automate. So that was kind of telling. And also like experimenting with if we fully automate the leasing process or booking process, like one of the panels, like I have a lot of people that don't show up. So like now I got to kind of come back the other way and say, well, where do I insert people to make sure my appointments actually get to my property?
Hmm.
I think the other thing that they did right as far as like the trade show floor, and I've seen this in different places, they put the food with the trade show floor.
Yes, that was
Many,
awesome.
many exhibitors, and I've been in exhibitor trade shows. Sometimes the trade show floor is like all the way in a corner and no one goes to it. They're like, wait a minute, let's put lunch right next to the trade show.
Yeah.
So you have to pass through that to get to the lunch. Well done idea, and that should probably be a matter of course in a lot of these where the exhibitors are paying a fortune to be there. They want traffic, so they made this, highly trafficked area to get to the food and through the trade show floor.
And it was hot food. I said that over and over again. I was like, look at this. It's not a sandwich. It's not a wrap, but they had hot food. That was a highlight for me too. I forgot to mention. Yeah, you're absolutely right how they weaved that in there for sure. And on what you just said with the bringing the people, having that tech stack meet people, there was talk of centralizing renewals. I heard that over and over again. Not so much centralization of offices, but centralization of having one human being just dedicated for renewals on 2 or 3 sites. And that's their job, so that's all they're focused on. So that was something I kind of caught too.
So Tammy, we know your love language now is hot food.
Yeah, you're the hot food and White Claw. Done. Done.
Duly noted. Those are really good. So Zeke, you want to round it out? It's always tough to go last because it's like, what did we not cover, right?
Hey everyone, I'm Zeke. I work in marketing in the leasing and lead conversion space. And so super great conference. A lot of the topics were related to the world that I play in. At a high level for the conference, I would say scheduling and time management was great. Everyone said that. There are some great powerhouse speakers, Marcy at RKW, the COO of Elcor. There's an SVP from Waterton that was over data. And so there were like really great subject matter experts. And what I loved about the sessions is they were concise, they were fast, and they didn't drone on. Like we've all been to a trade show where you're in there for an hour, and after 20 minutes, you're like on your phone, like waiting for your next meeting, or like, after it's 2 o'clock on the last day, like it's really hard to retain information because you've been through, like a whirlwind the past couple of days. But even on the last day, I was able to retain a lot of the information just because they were so concise, there was no fluff, and the speakers were typically at the executive level. And so they spoke from like a really high level and strategic view. And that's what I really loved about the sessions. In terms of the vibe of the conference, I talk fast and I talk a lot, as you can tell. And so maybe this is just me, but super fast paced, super open. There's coffee every 3 feet. I was using the bathroom every 10 minutes. Like you could, no matter where you look, there's coffee. And so everyone was jacked up beyond belief. But yeah, I would say there's a lot of really important operators there. And there are also a lot of really cool innovative startups that I haven't met before. And it was great to talk to the people that were at like the sub 10 employee range. And so that overall, I would say I love the conference. It's my first RETCON. I got a lot of value from it as a supplier, from getting an ROI, and also just from like learning a ton. Like I've been in multifamily for 2 years, and I've been at my current company for 2 months, and I'm new to leasing tech. And so like I would say this sped up my education by 6 months if I didn't attend. And so like super valuable for me. Before the conference, something that's interesting, like what's RETCON about? What are the key themes? Before the conference, I just put all the sessions in a spreadsheet and used ChatGPT to analyze it. There are 17 sessions for multifamily over 3 days, and half of them mentioned AI or ways to differentiate your portfolio or experience from your submarket. And then a third talked about tech, investing, or leasing. And then 23% talk about strategies and operations. So probably not a surprise, really heavy on AI, differentiating your portfolio, and making better leasing and investment decisions with record supply. A couple of the talks that really stood out to me, there's three. Mike at Elcor, absolutely loved it. I'm going to cold email him at some point once I get the video recap and dive in. At the very least, just to say thank you. But Tammy hit on this. He shared his evaluation criteria, and as a supplier, it's really interesting. I was surprised at what Tammy said. Like, his first thing is, who's the CEO? What's their personality like? Are they innovators? Can they pivot to new technologies when the market changes? Can they adapt to the different trends? Can they implement AI in this archaic product? Two, financial viability. No one gets fired for hiring a Yardi because Yardi's been around for 30 years or 20 years. But a lot of the best of breed technologies are the smaller players with 10, 20, 30, 200 employees. And a question that he always asks is like, what's the financial viability? Do they have a high enough margin? Are they future proof? Because you don't want to roll something out across the portfolio and then the supplier disappears in a year. And that's happening all the time in the software world with the economy. And so that was a really important consideration. These last two aren't super surprising. You've probably heard this a million times, but like leasing and site team processes, how cumbersome and easy is it? If it's a new portal, a new dashboard, if it's a new job for your site teams who are already probably overwhelmed, then it's a no-go, it's a non-starter. It's a complete deal breaker if it adds work to your site team. And then the last thing, again, probably not a surprise, integrations and do they play well with others? Like integrating with PMS and the CRM was like absolutely a deal breaker. And so, yeah, who's the CEO, financial viability, leasing and site team, workload, and then integrations. The other two things you talk about, like how do you, like, you meet with your executive team, you know you want to roll out XYZ later in the year. How do you how do you deploy across portfolio? His advice was pick 3 solutions in the same space. So like if you're doing leasing tech, choose 3 virtual touring platforms, pilot it across 3 different regions, and make sure the team that you have are like the forward-thinking regionals and site teams that'll give you real feedback. Not the people that this is like a part-time job and they're going to move on. Like find the people that are really driven and they're going to be analytical and like see if this will evolutionize your leasing process. And do that for 90 days and collect feedback every week and every month and like really track the quantifiable impact. And then once you do that, you can be pretty confident about doing a rollout for multiple regions for the technology that was most successful. Things that were important to him, technologies that a key theme across multiple sessions was site teams are using 15 to 22 plus tools. The data is formatted in different ways. You might have 17 different definitions of NOI. And so a lot of the large operators are connecting all that into a BI system so they have a single source of truth. And they're also making sure that there's the same definition for each metric. So like when I say NOI, like it needs to be the same formula for every site team in every region. Otherwise you're skewing it when you're consolidating. Other things, centralizing admin functions is the easiest first step, is something that was shared quite a bit. Everyone is thinking about centralization, but knowing where to start is challenging. Admin function seems to be the resounding answer at RETCON. And then for Elcor, a couple of the innovative things that he was doing, by having a really like centralized leasing platform, 17% of their leases were coming from other communities. So they toured at this community, wasn't a fit, and 17% of those people were going to go lease at another place in the portfolio. And so they were keeping leads within their PMC, even if it didn't lease to that community. AI leasing assistants were a huge focus. 85% of questions they found could be automated by an AI leasing assistant. Fraud protection, ID and income verification came up over and over again. And yeah, that was the stuff from Mike at Elcor. Supply was a huge focus with the RealPage guy. Large inventory growth is leading to less rent growth. And then there's a myth that a lot of people had, including myself, that went with following rent growth that Class A properties would take the biggest hit. Wasn't the case at all. Class A properties were the least impacted by all the new supply. And then the last one I would talk about, as you said, Tara, Tammy and Ariel stole my thunder, but I add a couple more notes about Marcy at RKW. When that session comes out, you need to beg someone that went to RETCON for recording. It was absolutely incredible. Like it was such a good like deep dive in 30 minutes on how to like really optimize the customer experience. She started the presentation by drawing a parallel to hospitality. In the hotel industry, a 3-star hotel can be 1 staff for every 20 units. A 4-star can be 1 staff to every 10 units. And a 5-star can be 1 staff for every single unit. And we all know that hospitality delivers a really great resident experience, but in multifamily, like we can't afford to have that level of staff to unit ratio because the margins are so much thinner. And so a big focus of our presentation is like we have to deliver the same great customer experience as a hotel, and we can't do it with staff, so we had to bridge that gap with technology. And there are 3 big themes in our presentation. Your customer experience needs to be high tech and high touch, and that looks like 3 things. It needs to be on demand. You need to meet the customer where they are. It needs to be frictionless and be really seamless and not frustrating. And 3, optionality. You need to give the renter different options based on their preference. Some people don't want to talk to a leasing agent. I'm one of them. I want to lease online, and if I can't, I won't live there. A couple of the things that were interesting from her presentation were just the theme of like when you map out your customer journey from being a prospect to move in to resident to renewal, you need to think about 2 things, tech and touch. What are the tech that's in place? And then how can you add the human touch on top of that? So if we think about like a prospect, you have things like an iOS, a chatbot, a CRM, virtual tours, and those are all great and they'll get you to the 40 to 50% mark, but leasing teams need to add the extra touch, and that looks like outreach marketing, community events, really personalized lead nurturing, really great tour experiences and training, and our like preferred employer programs. And throughout their journey, there's over 40 touch points from prospect to renewal. And she mapped out touch and tech at every step of the journey. And so like an exercise I challenge anyone on the multifamily side to operator side to do is like map out prospect, applicant, resident, and renewal, and just think about like what are the tech that's in place, and then how can you enhance that with touch. And then the last thing, really great panel from Rose and Waterton. Key theme across the conference was like centralizing data across these million different systems. Something unique that one of them were doing was when they're onboarding new vendors, they had each vendor fill out a 200 question questionnaire. And most of those questions aren't relevant for each vendor, but it was all around like what data is this vendor collecting, producing, and analyzing? And if they were producing and analyzing something valuable, then they were, as part of the partnership, they were requiring that the vendor supplies that back to them. And so you have all this data internally for your current tools. When you add in new tools, it's a great opportunity from the get-go to start getting that data. And so, yeah, I would say great conference, a lot of great themes, and big focus was on deploying technology, centralizing data, and as everyone has hit on, is like just really, really finding ways to combine innovative technology with personal touch to optimize the resident journey. And so those are my takeaways. Again, I talk fast, I talk a lot. Thanks for giving me time. And also, what a great group. I feel like I know everyone on this call for the most part, even though I haven't talked to you, just because you all have great LinkedIn presences. So if we haven't met one-on-one already, I'd love to do it in the next couple months. And before Tara grills me, I need to be more involved in the matchmaking group. I saw her grill Taylor during Autumn's presentation, apologies. And I don't want to be the victim, so I called out. I need to be more involved, and I'm sorry.
You guys, wait, Taylor, can you tell me was I an asshole? Because I didn't mean to be.
I did not feel grilled. Like Zeke interpreted that. I just felt very welcome. And in fact, that's why I immediately joined. So you're good.
I did want to point out one other thing that Zeke you made me remember. Is that with the sessions, there was a lot of transparency. You knew if you were going to a session that someone paid to speak at. You knew if it was a pay to play. They told you in the verbiage, basically, this person paid money for this session. So it's going to be a little bit of a pitch, right? You knew that when you looked at the session. So I thought that was really great too, because there was no bait and switch. Like you knew if you went and saw, I think it was like the Cox Business or something guy talk, like that was essentially a pitch. And they told you in the verbiage of this is what they're talking about. So I thought that was really cool too.
Do you think that affected the attendance of that person, or do you think people just appreciated the transparency there?
I think they appreciated the transparency. I never saw an empty room. And they were some of the shorter sessions too. So, in respect to someone who's going to provide 45 minutes worth of information that's going to draw the masses, they kept these to the 10 and 20 minute sessions from what I saw.
Oh, okay. So Zeke, great job, everybody, by the way. This was like, I feel like I was at the conference. You guys did such a good job. I want to go back to what you said, and I was trying to write it down. You said something about this conference like accelerated 6 months worth of learning, or can you revisit that again so I can digest that one more time?
Yeah, so for context for everyone, I've been in multifamily for 2 years, and everything but the last 2 months was really focused on like a point solution amenity that was in the financial technology space. And so I'm brand new to leasing tech. And so just learning how people like Marcy or Mike talked about leasing AI or these different terms, like, and putting it in their voice and like really understanding like leasing touches so many parts of the business, but these are the 5 that like really mattered. It just helped me digest and prioritize the different metrics, different processes that like executives were talking about. And like Marcy's especially just like seeing the entire leasing journey from an iOS listing to renewal automation, like Tammy talked about, like was super duper insightful. And once the sessions are out, I'll make a post about it that's a little more detailed. As everyone knows, a conference like drinking from a fire hose, and so like I would like the 10% I remembered was great, but I think like because it was all executive level speakers at large operators, or not all, but the ones I attended, it just gave me the ability to know what was important to these people. And they also got really detailed and nuanced. Like it wasn't like, hey, customer experience is important. You need to modernize your customer experience. It was like, no, at the prospect stage, here's the 10 things you need to do. Like it was very tactical and detailed, and that was what was valuable for me.
I love that. One of the things that I wanted to ask you guys about was, are you hearing, so like they're centralizing the renewal piece you talked about. Are you hearing management companies forming committees to evaluate tech? So like you talked about, Zeke, like the way that, I forget who it was, and then like, you deploy it at a few properties, touch base every week, and then 90 days kind of make that decision. Are you seeing a trend of companies forming committees internally to kind of vet that process out beyond the 200 question thing?
I haven't seen that, but I think it's a great idea.
Did anyone else hearing that?
Yes, I have seen it. So like in smart technology and stuff that I carry, there's absolutely innovation groups. There's some organizations that have directors of innovation. I was on a call with a large operator last week, absolutely has a committee that will do this type of vetting, and it's extensive. I think the thing that's mileage will vary on how long is a thorough vetting last. I've seen like 90 days, and I've also saw a panelist that was like, I need to check something for 2 years. I was like, gee, I don't know if I want to sell to her. So, it's like you got to hit a happy medium on like what that is. But yes, we're in certain opportunities where it will be decided and it's being looked at by committee, 100%.
Well, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say 2 things I want to share on this. Number one, UDR has been doing internal renewals for 10 years.
10?
So they've had, yes, for 10 years. They have dialed in the process. So this isn't something new, but if you want to know how to do that well, if they'll tell you, reach out to somebody at UDR. But we've got a panel coming up at AIM that's going to be around differentiating your property through technology and through leveraging your existing spaces. And we've got 2 folks on the panel that are on REITs and one that's at a private equity company. And both, we're going to hear from them. So if you're AIM, please join. It's going to be a great session. But just to give you a preview, just for evaluating those technology and partnerships that they're using to build income within their properties. For the 2 REITs, the average partnership vetting time is about a year. And for private, it's closer to 3 to 6 months, and they are all tending to pilot. In terms of what companies are forming committees, we're just finishing up a white paper that I hope to have published in the next week. We interviewed multifamily stakeholders about what they want and need in future ready properties. So I'll send it out, Tara, to you. I'm going to not say your name wrong most of the time, Bessie. I'll send it out to you guys, and we'll be publishing on LinkedIn as well. And from the executives that we talked with, almost all of them were developing committees to evaluate their technology. they're all comprising in different ways depending on how they're structured. So a private equity firm is going to set up their committee differently than a REIT. They're going to set it up differently than development, and who those ultimate stakeholders are can shift and change as well. But I think it's going to be a really interesting time for folks that are in the tech space looking to partner with multifamily owner operators, developers to figure out now who the heck are we supposed to be talking to.
So
That
who's
was a
going to
lot of
AIM?
information.
No, but I am so looking forward to AIM. It's going to be my first one. Who else on this call is going to AIM? Are you serious? It's just, okay, the three of us?
I'm trying to raise my
We're
hand,
gonna have,
but I couldn't figure it out. So
I actually want to read a quick, it looks like Grady left, but I want to call out something that someone else called out about him. He said that the word of the conference at RETCON was frictionless. So I was hoping he could expand on that, but I think we kind of get the gist of it. So I saw Savannah Wheeler had posted a full recap of RETCON on her LinkedIn recently. And so she also mentioned or somebody mentioned the app, but I'm looking at some of the tips. And so she ended her post with, hold on, I'm trying to read this on my phone. So tips, if you do go, use the app to network and schedule meetings. Obviously, we're all trying to get the skinny on who's developing this app. Sounds like it was a really good one. She didn't realize that many of the events were RSVP only and missed out. Did you guys happen to know that ahead of time?
You had to read the emails. You really had to read within the email, and the link was like, it would be like, hey, here's this, the bullet pointed, we're doing this, this, and this. And it would say RSVP here on it. So while a lot of them were RSVP, like the women in business happy hour, you could just walk in. If it was off site, then they needed to have those RSVPs. But I think that for the most part, it was available, but you really had to look at the emails. They could have done a better job of saying, hey, these are things we need RSVPs for, I guess. Yeah.
I think Tammy.
Nobody reads email.
What's that?
Nobody reads email. That's the problem. I'm part of that problem.
I think
Go ahead,
Tammy, it was interesting also how they said in some of the emails, this is not for vendors.
Oh yeah.
Like they wanted networking amongst like owner operators and like no vendors pouncing on them. Do not come here.
Very clear that we
like,
could not attend certain events.
Warning, skull, crossbones, you're a vendor. Do not come to this.
Yeah.
That drives me bananas.
Listen, again, I appreciate the transparency. Like, I got it.
Yeah, I was like, guess not. Guess
No,
not going to that one.
Not going. I'm not even going to go in the vicinity of that one.
I don't know. I don't know if they did it this year. So last year when I went, I was working with a developer, and I went like under the auspices of the developer organization. So when I was there, they were having roundtables. Like they bring a vendor in or some vendors in, and I mean, most of the people were owners. And then like this vendor would say, hey, I'm trying to hatch this project or this product. And he would poll like 15, 20 people on, do you think this is a good idea? And like, what are your struggles? What are your questions? I wasn't invited to that this year because I was pure play vendor, no developer interest. But that was a quite fascinating thing also, where they were like these curated roundtable discussions also.
Yeah, actually, I was going to mention that too, Jeff. That's something I realized last year too, which was really intriguing. And to my understanding, I don't think they had that kind of roundtable at this type of event. Maybe it was like maybe too large to coordinate, but that was something I heard also last year was really intuitive and really neat discussions in those roundtables.
But yeah, I think Ariel, in response to that, you know what they were doing during the lunch period? They also were telling you like you could sit at like the lease automation
or and had different like topics and stuff. Yeah. Whereas last year was like certain people were like invited and like it was invite only, like only 10 like certain like operators and stuff like that. So it was more generic this year for sure.
Yeah, but they were trying to still curate like these like topic tables.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting.
One of the things that she pointed out too is she said, and I'm wondering how you guys feel about this. the people that were there, the expo was very crowded. With such a networking centric event, it might have been better to have the kiosk set up versus full booths in such a tight space. Do you guys agree with that? Or how did you feel about the layout of everything?
It was very tight for sure. And there was one weird row in particular that was very, very, very full. I don't know why. I think they might have oversold the space, but the rows that were a decent size were okay. It was again very busy, but there was this one tiny little row. It would definitely had a weird like feel to it. It was very crowded, but it also kind of enhanced like, okay, I can go over here and get some food. I can go over here and get a drink. I can go talk. Oh, they had tons of tables where you could go sit down, wait your turn, walk back around. And again, it was 2 days from 12 to 5. So you had your opportunities, although it was crowded.
Okay. She mentioned, it was funny because I'm reading this other thing that literally is like more seating. I love the networking tables and huddle spots, but sometimes you just have to answer your email. So you're saying there was places to kind of like plop down if you need to catch up or no?
Oh, there was a ton. Yeah, because there was, and maybe people didn't notice, but there was 3 floors. Like there was a ton of space.
Really?
Yeah.
I think though, Tammy, what she's responding to is, or talking about is like when you were outside, like some of those meeting rooms, there was not a chair, not a couch,
Oh yeah, no.
nothing. And it was almost like by design, they took away furniture so people couldn't, just come there and hang out outside. And they also had very, very tight security on, like really
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
checking
I forgot that.
badges,
Really?
you belong. Oh yes. It wasn't just like, oh, I'll come to the conference and mosey in. No, it was very New York security like.
Uh-huh. Very much so. Very much Men in Black. Earpieces, the whole 9.
Oh,
You were not getting in.
Yes.
I live
So
in California. I'm trying to figure out what California style security would be. Like, would we just be stoned and like just be like chill?
They're wearing
No.
flip-flops.
No, like here, velvet ropes, guards on chairs. Hey,
Yep.
where's your badge? Flip it over. Like really checking.
I love it.
Wow. That's insane. That is, you're right. That is like super New York vibe, right? So you guys have mentioned that the app was really good. I have to say, I'm about to go to TAA next week, and then I'm going 2 weeks later to AIM, and I'm already like overstimulated with the amount of, because like you get into an app and all of a sudden there's like these chats and moms of marketing and I'm like, I can't. Like I'm trying to like figure out how to not get overstimulated with all, like the app is great, but like was this app doing a lot of stuff before the conference even started to get you like you almost where you wanted to delete the app off your phone, or was it just during the conference?
Like Ariel said, we had it a week and a half before the conference started to really, play with it and check it out. I didn't, and that's something I learned. I got there figuring it was like every other app, and I was going to open it and click my sessions and just check out the trade show floor. But it was so intuitive, and you could, again, schedule meetings. You could message any and everyone who was there. And if I had taken advantage of it, I would have done a little more scheduling and trying to really get to these people. But one thing that Zeke said too that was a trigger, everyone who was up on stage, these are high level people, every single one of them I heard after they were done say, I'm going to be here. Find me if you want to talk. Come up to me at the end of this session. It wasn't like, I got to get out of here, I'm moving on. Every single person was available.
That's really nice. That's rare. I do like how you mentioned that if someone was giving that quote commercial, which is usually forbidden, that, that's an obvious thing. Because there are people, if you're going to a tech conference, which is mostly what this was, right? Like you're there to see certain things and certain companies and what they've got to offer. But I think it is kind of I think that would be something to adopt at other conferences, just to kind of make it more obvious what you're walking into, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, they were pretty transparent about that. You knew by reading the little synopsis of what they were going to talk about, that this guy from Cox Business is going to tell you about Cox Business. Like it wasn't anything other than that.
Joseph, you're hilarious. Did you turn off the notifications? So yeah, like that's the part where I feel like if I turn it off, like what am I gonna, like am I gonna miss out on something and then be like, well, you turned off your notifications, so it's, you know. You're so funny. All right, well, we have 9 minutes. I'll open this up. Does anyone have anything they want to share that's not related to RETCON? Any industry stuff, future conferences?
I have a question on RETCON. This is super helpful. Thank you, guys. Did you get the impression that the attendees that were there were really a national audience? That's kind of what I'm gathering, because I'm curious, how much of the audience do you feel were New Yorkers that were coming and engaging with the content, or do you feel like it was majority a national audience that came to this event?
I would say that a lot of the smaller like owner operators, like sub 2K units, like a lot of those were New York based, but there was a lot of large operators like Cortera, Waterton. Like I can even share the attendee list if you remind me after.
Yeah, like I definitely glanced at it. And I know like a lot of my landlord partners that I work with are both in New York and from a national level. And so just curious if you got a sense of like, oh, super New York focused or more national focused, because it sounds like it's the latter.
I would say for the smaller groups, like very New York, but anything over like probably 1,000 unit portfolios was like pretty national. Like I didn't get the, like Rose Associates was there, like all the large ones in New York were there, but like we had Waterton, Cortera, I mean we had a bunch of. It was super valuable for us, like for getting pilots off the ground. Like but like for some of the people in the Southeast, for example, like they went from people that were on Zoom and never had their camera or mic on to people that like we were hugging and like making connection with. And so like it was pretty national for us.
Okay.
At least for the deals that we were like trying to progress in pipeline.
Got it. So a little bit of both. So you could find the New Yorkers there, but you could also have a more national conversation. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
I like when we talk about New Yorkers, Jeff smirks.
Because I always love the Texans that say I have an accent. I'm like, what do you mean I have an accent, y'all?
So how expensive is this conference to go to? So if you're a smaller supplier, do they have like that little hallway where your table's by the bathroom and you're not really going to get foot traffic and that's like $6,000, or like what are the ranges?
I went as an attendee and I got early registration. It was like $1,600 plus my hotel, which actually the rate of the hotel was cheaper than Advocate.
Really?
Yeah.
And so you being a supplier partner, you were able to go as an attendee and not forced to exhibit or anything like that?
I also didn't have a booth. I got a lot of value out of it.
Agreed.
I think that Ariel might disagree with this, but I don't know how much value we would have gotten from a booth. Like it was a pretty cramped trade show floor. And like I felt like if you were just like a crazy stalker looking at badges, you could probably get the same impact as like people coming to your booth.
No, I definitely agree. So I would argue that I got probably more value last year, like being an attendee as a supplier, not having a booth. The reason why we had the booth was because it came with like, we had a speaking package and like that, I mean, that runs over, I think like 10,000. I'm not sure exactly what that looked like, but it came with a package that Snap was involved with. So that's why we had it. But I definitely agree, Zeke. I think, and Tammy, you can get the same value, if not more, just being an attendee and going to those meetings and going to those sessions and creating those meetings on your own.
Yeah. I will say I did talk to James after, and he actually said that they are going to have a location change, that they've outgrown this space. So, with keeping that in mind, it might make a difference to see the layout of what the trade show floor will look like at whatever new location we are going to be at. If you're going to make that decision. So I wouldn't base, if you're thinking about going, I wouldn't necessarily base next year on this year, because they've already realized the problem.
Yeah, good point.
And you said there was about almost 2,000 attendees. Was that right? 1,800 to 2,000?
Mm-hmm.
And do I get to go into the sales mail archives and find eProperty Care or ALN or even Snapped using anything on the RETCON floor, or is there not that any to be found?
I didn't do anything while I was there. I didn't. I wanted to do some outside stuff, but it was pouring down rain the whole time.
You gotta give us the challenge before the thing, not after. If I was challenged to do it before I went, all right,
Right,
maybe.
yeah. And I got sales mail just after the conference, so I missed out.
Okay, so people for Interface TAA challenge has been open here.
Yeah.
Sarah Flores, do your sales mail from the trade show.
I'm gonna get sales mail to come up with a prize. We're gonna do something. That's awesome.
Definitely.
All right, 4 more minutes. Anyone have any other comments, feedback, general stuff going on?
The folks at, if you're not familiar with Zip Code Creative, they are making a multifamily yearbook that they're going to release at AIM. I am on a mission to be voted most likely to go to bed early at a conference because it's true. So aside from helping me win a completely ridiculous accolade, I had a really fun time going through and filling it out. So it's posted on my LinkedIn, or go find Stacy Feeney and Zip Code Creative on LinkedIn and go vote for multifamily yearbook if you want.
Yeah, and by the way, one of the categories, I think it was the last one, was something about mentorship, like who
Yes.
going to be a mentor, or I don't know. It was something about mentorship she had on there. But yeah, you're right. I have it open to vote. It's like the coolest project I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Like,
I voted for many people in this group, but I'm not going to tell you who, except obviously I'm telling you I voted for myself for most likely to go to bed early. Because you know I get up at like 4 a.m. and go run or do yoga or something
Did
stupid.
someone put it in the chat?
oh yeah, it will go to her LinkedIn page too. She just posted it today.
Oh, okay.
And she tagged me and a bunch of people that she's doing this, and it's literally the coolest idea. Like, I think Christy Fickert was like, we need to do this at every conference. It's
Love
brilliant.
it.
I just put the link in the chat.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
And
By the way, I feel you on that, Carol. I go to bed early all the time. I got made fun of at NAA. I was like 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. I'm out. That's my
12
bed.
a.m. I go home at 7:30 p.m. I don't even do the dinners. I'm like, I am out of here.
terrible too. Yeah, but Carol and I get up and walk our asses up in the morning. At what time? We were up at
6, 7.
and Joseph's gonna have everybody up at like 4 a.m. to do some sort of a workout. I know he will.
I'll do it. I'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, she will. Let's go, Carol.
I think the last thing that I'll say that's funny, when you're in real life and you see people, how tall or short they are, it's very different than on Zoom. When I ran into Grady, I'm about 6'1". He's like 6'3" or 4". He's very, very tall.
He's so tall. You're so true.
I never gathered that like when I saw him online, but he was much bigger in person.
You guys will just walk right past me because I'm only 5 feet tall. Just keep going. You're not even gonna see me.
That's probably one of the most interesting things when you actually see people like their real size.
That's legit. That is actually so funny that you said that, because it's so true. And same with Ben from Revise. I was like, dude, I did not know you were this tall.
Okay, so now we have to all update our Zoom names to have our height and our pronouns.
It's funny you say, because when I was on site leasing, I'm exactly like 5 feet tall. I would say you can fit 3 Tammys here if it was 15 feet. Like, that's how I would talk to people.
You're just putting yourself in the marketing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Here, there. I now have. We're good. Now you guys know how tall I am.
Oh, that's
Wait, Carol, before we jump off, tell everybody really quick about your fun session that you're going to do for the group in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a session. I may tweet it, Tara. We'll see, but it's going to be on how to get or give feedback. It's going to be really fun.
Yep. I'm super excited for that. Marcus, do you want to plug your session that's coming up for the group too? Speaking of.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. My session will be on.
Oh, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, no.
Wait, say it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Something happened.
Bad.
No, it went away again. What the heck? Like, we can hear you for the first few seconds and then it goes away. No.
All right, we'll see that on a future post.
Bye, everybody. I got a client call. Have a great weekend.
Good to see you. Bye.
All right, what about?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, sorry about that. Gosh, going in and out. All right, anyway, harmonizing the mix, orchestrating the balance between people, process, and technology, much like crafting a hit song where all the components come together in perfect rhythm. Looking forward to it.
I am too. And Tammy, are you voting? Did you already tell me that you wanted to do a VamiCon recap? I don't
Yep,
remember. You
I
did?
do.
Okay. We'll come up with dates for a VamiCon recap, TAA recap, and AIM recap. So those are the next 3 that we'll have. Apparently we love doing these on Friday, FOMO Friday. I think that's just going to be like the thing.
Like it. I like it.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank
Bye,
you
everyone. Thank
for
you.
your help. Appreciate it.